Going to move on. Now, the next speakers have negotiated a deal here, so we'll see if the committee goes for it. Speaker 3, 4, and 7 will speak on behalf of Speaker 17 and 34 if you give them 15 minutes. What do you think? Let's make a deal? All right, sounds good. So, welcome Albert, David, and James. It's 3, 4, and 7. And then 17 and 34 are not going to speak, so they're going to use the 15 minutes. Please. We can't leave the room. Yeah, so when we need to? So what I said is we were going to have a 5-minute recess, 5 minutes. It's mid-morning, and then the afternoon we only have an hour and a half because we lose quorum at 3 p.m. today. This is the challenge we face here in PWIC. 3 p.m. because we won't have quorum because we rescheduled the date to today and we don't have quorum. Today wasn't an ideal date, but it was the last date we could get in prior to getting to council. So would you like a break at 11 or?
No, I'm okay. I just because I was noticing a lot of questions that were popping up all the time. And I was thinking, there's a really relaxed environment.
Okay. So welcome Albert, David, and James. You've got 15 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is Albert Koehl. I'm an environmental lawyer and one of the founders of Belles en Bloor. David Harrison, chair of the Annex Residents Association, is to my left, and to my far left is James Choi of the Palmerston Area Residents. We all strongly support, and you'll hear from them, the pilot bike lane. Belles en Bloor was formed in 2007, bringing together several cycling groups, including Take the Tooker and Bike Lanes on Bloor, to continue the push for bike lanes on Bloor Street. We're grateful to city staff and their consultants for their careful work and patient consultations with the public, and to the local councillors Joe Cressy and Mike Layton for championing this project. The Bloor Street pilot is an important step forward for bicycle infrastructure in Toronto. Although in terms of roadway, it's a very modest 2.4 kilometres on a 5,500 kilometre city road network. Here's some additional historical context. In 1977, Toronto's Public Works Commissioner was asked to report on cycling routes to address the safety needs of the city's growing number of cyclists. How long ago is that? I was just finishing high school. I turned 56 this year. So as in other Canadian and U.S. cities, cycling for everyday traveling was experiencing a revival because of concerns about air quality, oil dependency, and physical fitness. Bloor had among the highest scores as a bicycle route, as it did in subsequent studies, because of the popularity among cyclists, its a connection to north-south routes, the potential for further growth, and significantly and lamentably, the high number of collisions between cars and trucks and bicycles. So that report ultimately didn't adopt Bloor Street, but there was actually, and it was partly because of concerns about parking, although there was no assessment of how many shoppers actually arrived by car. In 1992, city consultant did another study on the best routes for cycling. Bloor Danforth was identified as an ideal east-west spine for Toronto's nascent cycling network. The entire 20-plus kilometre stretch was to be completed in Phase 3 of the plan. That was to be 1993. In 2007, the city announced a feasibility study for a Bloor Danforth bikeway. On the eve of the release of that report in 2009, Council's chair of the Cycling Committee announced that Bloor Danforth would get bike lanes, with portions of the Danforth likely to be completed before the end of the year. Instead of implementation, another study was ordered, but never completed. Also in 2009, the Toronto Centre for Active Transportation reported that only 10% of patrons visiting Annex businesses arrive by car, and that most of the business comes from pedestrians, cyclists, and transit users. And finally, in October 2013, given the earlier failures, Belles en Bloor appeared before this committee to recommend a pilot bike lane on Bloor Street. This proposal was supported by a Cycle Toronto petition and then championed with the new council in place by Councillors Cressy and Layton. So let me make 3 brief observations based on this. First, we're not trying to make cycling popular on Bloor Street. Bloor Street is a popular route for cyclists, and it's been a popular route for decades, despite the lack of a safe share of the road for cyclists. So you can imagine the potential increase in cycling traffic with bike lanes. Second, we're not trying to take anything away from local business. We want local business to thrive. Why? Because we shop there. We go to the restaurants, the coffee and tea shops, the magazine kiosks, the pubs and delis, the cinema, the food and variety stores. To prosper, businesses don't need cars, they need shoppers. Bloor is almost maxed out, and you've heard that, when it comes to single-occupant cars. The real potential for growth is in using limited road space more efficiently. Third, we're not asking for the right to cycle on Bloor Street. We've had that right since before there were even cars on Bloor Street. We're simply asserting our right to be safe on Bloor Street. So this pilot, 40 years in the making and modest in scale, will demonstrate the many benefits to our community and to our city of a healthy, affordable, efficient, and clean way of getting around. The pilot will take us toward a long overdue objective, a city where residents who cycle and the many others in cars or transit who would love to cycle but for the danger can do so confidently that they'll return home safely at the end of each day. Thank you. With that, I'm going to turn over the mic to David Harrison, Chair of the Annex Residents Association.
Thank you, Albert. Indeed, I have the privilege of chairing the Annex Residents Association. The ARA, just to remind you, goes from Bathurst to Avenue Road, from Bloor Street up to the tracks, and we have more than 15,000 residents in that area. And we are very ably represented, I might say, by Councillor Cressy. It has been our policy since 2011 to advocate for bike lanes on Bloor, mostly for the benefit of and safety of our residents. We've been very public in our advocacy. We have held public meetings. We've distributed, my goodness, we distributed 10,000 postcards in the area to talk about this issue. I myself have been at several of these meetings and have never heard anybody actually oppose bike lanes on Bloor, which is a surprise. We joined with all 5 of our neighboring residents associations, Huron-Sussex, Harvard Village, Christie Pitts, Palmerston, and Seton Village, in advocating for bike lanes. Everyone is in agreement. Even our neighbors at the Bloor Street Cultural Corridor, who we are representing today, are unreserved in their support for bike lanes on Bloor. So we would urge you to vote for this pilot. It seems the most sensible thing we could do to find out if biking on Bloor is going to make sense. Without doing it, we'll never know. In any event, we have a video we'd like to share with you to just show you the breadth of support for bike lanes on Bloor. Albert.
My name's Fiona, and this is Fiorian, and my husband Alex. We've lived in the Annex all our lives, and he wishes he has. We want to support bike lanes on Bloor. We think there should be more bike lanes in the city in general, especially on main streets where we can try and ease some congestion and traffic in the city.
My name is Michael Lowe. I have lived and worked in the Annex, Harvard Village all my life. I really enjoy cycling. I think the health benefits are enormous. I cycle to all the stores in the area.
I'm Tom Hamilton, the owner of Annex Photo on Bloor Street near Walmer Road, and I would love to see bike lanes along Bloor Street.
I really think that Scout and I would love to see more bike lanes and more pedestrians, and Scout of course would love to chase a few cyclists as he does squirrels and whatnot, which we'll see more of if there are bike lanes here rather than cars.
I'm Thomas Svoboda. I'm a physician who lives in the community. I bicycle on Bloor Street every day, and I support bike lanes on Bloor for my patients' health and for the health of the planet.
My name is Oliver Sabston. I believe that there should be also a bike lane on Bloor Street to get around better, less dangerous. And I've been biking everywhere. Like I go shopping in Yorkville sometimes on my bike. I go down to Lakeshore and also to Center Island. So yeah, just biking is awesome.
The moderate exercise that you can get from biking every day prevents disease, obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, coronary artery disease, strokes.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and I've been a cyclist in the city for over 30 years. I live at Dundas and Ossington, but when you are a cyclist, your neighborhood is really expansive, so I consider Bloor part of my neighborhood. I cycle up here all the time. It would be wonderful if we had bike lanes on Bloor Street, because it would just make everyone more aware and make everyone safer.
Breast cancer, colon cancer, osteoporosis, depression.
Oh, hi, my name is Edward and I run a business in Brunswick and Bloor, and I'm in support of the bike lane.
My name is Josh Fullen and I have lived and worked as a high school teacher in this area for over 10 years. I would love to see bike lanes on Bloor.
Hi, my name is James Lee. I own a Taste of Nature store on Bloor Street. So I'm supporting the bike lanes on Bloor Street, so their safety is much better. So I'm really supporting bike lanes on Bloor Street. Thank you.
I ride my bike on Bloor all the time. So do my two girls. One of my daughters bikes on Bloor to get to school every day. I am absolutely in favor of bike lanes on Bloor. It's a great way to get around our city, and it's really dangerous to bike on Bloor today.
We have many academic institutions along the Bloor corridor, high schools, universities, colleges, and there are many students waiting to make an active transportation choice, but I think they're reluctant to do so because the infrastructure is not there yet.
Preventable deaths are all prevented by the kind of cycling that we do every day for 30 minutes.
Hi, my name is Eric Kampoff. I'm manager of Curbside Cycle. We're one of 5 bike stores in the Annex neighborhood, which is one of Toronto's most vital cycling neighborhoods. We employ about 15 people, and we definitely support bike lanes on Bloor.
I have a business which is just off Bloor Street on Spadina. My family also cycles, but they're really frightened to cycle on Bloor because of the narrowness when cars are parked here. And I think it would be just fantastic to have bike lanes here.
Hi, my name is Louise, and I've been a cyclist in the city for about 7 years now. Bloor Street I use a lot, and I'd feel more comfortable if there were bike lanes on it. I go shopping around here, I go out at night, and yeah, it'd be a lot safer if there were bike lanes.
What do we want? Bike lanes on Bloor!
Bike lanes on Bloor make sense.
Do you want to turn the audio down on that so we can keep going? Because their time's running out. Okay,
Yeah,
do you want to
so
wrap
over
up?
to James Choi with the Palmerston Area Residents Association.
Hi, my name is James Choi, and I'm speaking on behalf of PARA today, who's represented by Michael Layton. First, I'd like to let you know that I've lived on Palmerston since 1997, and I'm an avid bike rider, and I'm just going to give some example. I go to work, shop with it. It takes me 8 minutes to get to work on my bike. It takes me 18 minutes to take the TTC, and by car it would take me 25 to half an hour to get to work. That's including looking for parking. I have a vehicle which I barely use. My vehicle is 19 years old, and it only has roughly 148,000 kilometers on it. So that gives an idea of how important my bike is, which I use every day, all year round. Nextly, I would like to, what PARA sent me here to relay is that the Mirvish Village development by West Bank will be very bicycle friendly, with on-site dedicated bicycle routes and bicycle parking. It will encourage people who live in development to cycle to their daily destinations. As you know, West Bank is developing the Mirvish Village on the southwest corner of Bloor and Bathurst. And they are in proposal of just over 1,000 rental units there. So that tells you the congestion that will be created if the infrastructure is not there. So West Bank will build its retail sector with cyclists in mind, especially with regards to bicycle parking. The 4 residents association are contributing their ideas to the planning process so that the movement of people, including cyclists, will work well in the intensified area. We are fully in support of the developer's desire to include innovative cycling infrastructure on the site, and this will go very well with the Bloor pilot project.
Okay, thank you very much. Question, Councillor Layton.
Thank you very much, and thanks for coming out today. I think it speaks volumes that all the local resident associations are supportive of the project. I'm not sure we'd ever have had this to be the case in the past. I was just curious about this. I should know one of them, but I don't. The population, the ARA is 15,000, HVRA? Around 5.
I think, Michael, if you add up all of those groups, it's about 50,000.
It's about 50,000. That includes Seaton, Seaton Village. It's a lot. Local residents in support of the project. Thank you. We don't measure all of them by all of our decisions by votes, but.
Okay, Councillor Cressy.
All right, a couple quick questions, and I'll try to keep it brief. So the 6 local residents associations, and you listed them. Can I ask, what do you think's changed in the last 10 years? I grew up off Bloor 20 years ago. The residents associations were not supportive of bike lanes on Bloor. Today, all 6 are. What's changed?
Well, I'd offer my opinion, which is in Toronto for a long time, what we've been trying to do is move cars, whereas I think we've finally come to the realization that what we want to be moving is people and goods. And we have 50 years of experience trying to move cars, and we haven't had a great deal of success. What's also changed is I think cyclists are speaking out that they want to be safe on our roads. When we talk about traffic, we talk about cars. Cyclists are traffic, as are pedestrians. We have a huge amount of traffic from cyclists and pedestrians on Bloor Street. And I think what's changed is that, well, a lot of work over a lot of years, but people are coming to realize the right of cyclists to be safe as well.
I think additionally, density has increased, and frankly, transit infrastructure has not improved, and there's tremendous desire of people to move around, and they simply can't rely on taking the subway or the bus.
So that's on residents in the shift with 6 residents associations. I know you're here speaking on behalf of the Bloor Street Cultural Corridor, who have also provided a letter of support. Could you just, for the benefit of everybody here, explain who the Bloor Street Cultural Corridor is and who their members are?
Yes, it's a very interesting sort of conspiracy of the Alliance Française, the Bar de Choux Museum, the Bloor Hot Dogs Cinema, the Gardner Museum, the Istituto Italiano di Cultura, the Japan Foundation, the Jewish Community Center, the Museum of Estonians, the Native Canadian Center, the Randolph Center of the Arts, the Royal Ontario Museum, the RCM, Soundstreams, Taffer Music, Talisker Players, the Toronto Consort, the Toronto Reference Library, the U of T Faculty of Music.
And David, I'm going to cut you off there, not that I know you could keep going just with my time. So I just want to illustrate that the institutions and cultural organizations, and you just mentioned some of them, and there are more, are also supportive of this.
They are, yes.
Thank you. There's one other institution not part of that I understand you sit on the liaison committee for, who is also supportive. That's the University of Toronto.
That's correct, yeah.
And I just want to finish on that on questions. So you mentioned off the top safety as one of the main reasons for the support for this pilot. I want to talk about students and safety. Are there a number of schools and a university along this corridor, and will this make it safer for them?
Well, there are quite a few. I mean, the biggest one being the University of Toronto, which has 50,000 students. There's also Huron Public School. There's Central Tech. There's UTS along Bloor Street.
Royal St. George.
So Royal St. George. So we have a lot of schools and a lot of students, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Holiday.
Thank you. The first speaker said something interesting that I just wanted to get some explanation on. And the statement was to use the limited road space more efficiently with the lanes. And I wondered if you could explain to me what you meant by more efficiently.
Well, getting more people moving either through the area or into the area. So that's what I mean by that. As I say, what we have on Bloor Street, a lot of single-occupant cars. So if you want to talk about an inefficient way of using that road space, single-occupant cars are probably quite low on the list. One of the things, of course, available to motorists now is ride-sharing. We have apps for ride-sharing. We have a subway below Bloor Street. A lot of motorists in surveys that have been done have said, I'd love to cycle. My wife is one of them. She'd love to cycle along Bloor Street but doesn't feel safe. So we open the opportunity for a lot of people to get out of their cars and to cycle. But we also need to be saying, we believe, to motorists in single-occupant cars that is something that if we're going to try to accommodate single-occupant vehicles, we haven't been able to do that over the last 50 years very well. And if that's the model, we don't believe it will work.
So if I heard this correctly, I mean, it's back to the previous discussion one of the speakers had was, we're going to bet that people are going to leave their cars behind. If that's what I'm hearing, they're going to shift modes. They're going to not drive. They're going to choose cycling or walking. And you think that this will help encourage that. Has there been any discussion about the thought that, you know, some people are actually passing through that neighborhood to get from A to B into the city, out of the city, and it may make access worse because it will plug up the street more? There'll be longer delay for people that live in the neighborhood to get into the neighborhood from somewhere else if they're in a vehicle or on a bus or whatever they're on. You know, there's that negative effect. Is that the most efficient way to use the road to affect the most number of people?
Yeah, we'd say not single-occupant cars are not an efficient way to use that road. I would also say that what if it takes 60 seconds additional for a motorist to get through on his or her own in a car? Isn't that a good investment in our community, in the air quality, in the climate, in the safety of the 50,000 people in our neighborhood are either walking or cycling? We think that's 60 seconds, if that's what it costs, is a good investment. But I should also say about parking. I mean, there is a lot of free parking on side streets in that area. We counted between Spadina and Shaw, just an area, there are about 650 free parking spots. That's not going to give you an optimal use of parking if it's free or underpriced. So there's a lot of paid parking, there's a lot of free parking, and there's still some parking on Bloor. So we're not saying to people, don't come to the neighborhood. We want them in our neighborhood, but we also want to use that space efficiently.
Do people really believe that this is only going to add 60 seconds?
What if it's 90 seconds? Is that a good investment in the safety of cyclists, in our air quality, in the health of our city? We think it is.
Councillor Halliday, that's the purpose of doing the pilot, is to try and answer these questions. Without doing the pilot, we can never answer that question.
Okay, that's all your time. All right, I have some questions too. So I've got an article here that says Bloor Street bike lane brouhaha. Neighborhood isn't sure more cyclists are a good idea. What do you think of that article? What's your take on this article?
Where is that? Oh, what date is it?
It's November of 2015.
I don't know that comment. I can tell you an interesting story very quickly that one of the fellows that was quoted on the CBC as being opposed to bike lanes, a pizza store owner, he was surprised that he was the one that was being quoted as saying he was against the bike lanes. He loves the cyclists and pedestrians because, of course, that's where most of the pizza business, or a lot of the pizza business is coming from.
Okay, so you think the neighborhood generally is on board? The neighborhood?
100%, yes.
Yeah. And the BIA, is any of the BIAs here today? Okay, they're next. Great. I'll save some of my questions for you. The 135 lost parking spots, you don't think those people are going to end up parking on the side streets, on the residential side streets? And that's going to have a negative impact? Because I know in my ward that's never popular.
Well, of course, sometimes they will, but there are green pea parking lots, you know, really quite conveniently located, which are, you know, almost never completely full.
And then the residents won't then change the parking regulations on their street so that it stops cars from parking there?
I doubt it. I mean, there's always going to be one or two residents who will not be happy.
Okay. And I guess, are you a little bit worried at all about if there, Councillor Halliday talks about congestion, if there starts to be a bit of congestion that people will reroute onto the side streets?
No, because it's very difficult to go through the side streets. We've, you know, managed to entangle the side streets in such a way that good luck to you if you try to get through.
Okay, thank you very much. My other questions are for the BIA. All right, thank you, and that you're done.